Okay, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. Here I am in wonderful Jacksonville, Florida. Saw an interesting movie this afternoon. It's a matinee of I Can. And what is this movie about? Apparently, it is a true story, not apparently. I've got to stop saying apparently because I say it too often when it doesn't need to be said. I have to self-edit like I'm grammarling myself, okay? But basically, this young lady, okay, I guess we have to start with her parents. They are, I mean, the movie starts kind of in an odd direction. I got to the theater just in time as Nicole Kidman was wishing me into my seat, as always, at this wonderful AMC theater. And then we start off this movie. The audio made me think I was in the wrong movie, to be honest with you, because it was almost like a horror film. The way that this thing was filmed, this opening scene, very intensely, of this young guy. He looks like he's 17 years old, and he's basically hiring this young woman to work for him at this company. And they're kind of like getting close-ups on their mouths, and like there's all this dramatic music. Well, I'm like, what's happening here? Is this a horror film? No, the big shtick was they were going to, these co-workers were going to make sweet love. And you know, the matter of it was that the gentleman was married, and this they fuck basically, okay? And then boom, 17 years later, we're on the softball field with the product of their love. This young woman, Katelyn Pavey is her real name in real life, and basically she does have a what you would call a disability. I mean, at least back in my day we would say a handicap. Now we don't, I don't know what the hell to say, but basically she's got one fully extended arm, one arm, and then the other arm is very short, so to speak, and so for the most part non-functioning. So I mean, this is the thing. I know human beings are weird. I mean, we all have these weird little thoughts in our head, like, basically their weird little thought is, we had this child while you were married to some other woman. You had, I guess you had to dump your first wife to be with me, to have this child with me, and our child was conceived out of lust and all these things. And apparently the storyline goes that these parents, especially the husband, have been harboring these feelings of guilt, and that God himself has punished him through his daughter having this handicapped. And then she grows up to be this wonderful player. Now, for a movie that's relatively short, which I do enjoy, I do like the fact that this movie was about 80 minutes long, 90 minutes maybe. I do like the fact that it's respectful of my time. I'm a busy guy. I've got things to do. But it's basically like trying to pack two movies into one, like the father's guilt and his spiritual journey of, but we never really get attached to the first wife because we don't see her on camera as far as I know. There's no scene where like the ex-first wife calls and gives him a hard time, or there's no, they really don't go into it. Look, a lot of people have what they call the starter marriage, and you don't think that he had any kids with the first wife. Now, I think what happens here is another problematic thing. I'm thinking that the actual people involved in this story had quite a bit to do with the film. And a lot of times people they want to give you a certain amount of their drama. They want to give you a certain amount of their vulnerabilities, but they don't want to give you the whole thing. So I think there's a little bit more to the story than what we're seeing here, that if it's such a big deal that this guy was married, to another woman first, we need some information or some scenes, like to actually see them in the movie, not just with exposition, meaning dialogue of past events. We need to see this former wife on camera to get her kind of take on things, or to see the hurt in her face when she was cheated on, okay? But we don't get that. So instead, we are kind of telling two stories: the father's guilt and angst of cheating on the first wife, and then starting, the second family, and assuming that the first wife didn't have any kids, just, throwing her out the garbage can or whatever. But yet, thinking that God himself is spited him and spited his innocent daughter with this this handicap, so to speak, or whatever you want to call it. So I mean, the way that I would have kind of, had it been me as a screenwriter, actor, award-winning director myself, I might have shown, like, put some scene into this movie of, look, yes, you cheated on your wife. You cheated on your first wife to make sweet love to this second woman. And you had this daughter out of wedlock, which catalysted you to divorce your first wife and marry your second wife. But look at the blessings that she has brought upon you. She was born, and she's been a great inspiration to not only you and to me, but to our whole community of girls softball loving people. And she's a hero to her younger sisters. And now we have not one, but 3 wonderful daughters, and a dog and a cat, and a pair of grandparents that live with us. So I don't know. It just felt like the angst or the guilt of the real people were somehow intertwining into this fucking movie. And then, I don't know. So, I mean, it's nothing against the actors. I thought the young lady who played Katelyn, I'm assuming that she actually has this, condition herself. It didn't seem like any type of prosthetic or any type of CGI. She did a great job. She was very sympathetic, and she was very, kind of stoic in her performance, which is good. And I thought she did a great job as a, teenage kid who's dealing with teenage fucking things, but also on top of that, she's trying to get a college scholarship to play softball, and she's got all the pressures, and she's the older sister of 3, and she's got these goofy fucking weird parents. So I thought the actress did a great job. I thought the people, playing the married couple did a good job too. I mean, I do feel like, casting wise, it was an interesting choice. I thought, honestly, the actor that probably got the most out of their scenes was the guy that played the grandfather. Yet I kind of feel like he was a little bit too young to play the grandfather. And I say that respectfully. The woman that was cast across from him as grandmama, Mimi as they call her, she kind of seemed like, in real life, she was 10 or 15 years older than the guy, maybe even 20, to be honest with you. Like, she did seem like kind of momish to who's supposed to be her husband. And maybe this guy, this actor who's playing grandpa, just has a nice youthful face, a nice wrinkle-free face. But I mean, it just felt like, to me, it was a little bit off-kiltering with the casting, and I have a thought on that. It could be because maybe this movie was kind of made without the Hollywood elite, and then this was just kind of I could see, like, the local community or the local church got together and made a movie, so they didn't have, like, all the casting choices of, whoever the fuck. So I do feel like, oddly enough, as far as the cast, Grandpa was probably the best acting performance for what he had to work with, yet kind of miscast, because to me, he could almost play the fucking father, you know what I mean? But the other thing is, the 2 young people in the flashbacks that played this couple, they look like fucking 15 and 16-year-old kids to me. I mean, maybe it's just me, but the kids, it looked like a great age difference, especially with the young man playing, the father at the young age. He looked like he was 16 or 17 years old. And then, say, 17 years later, you're like, okay, now he's going to be 34. But the guy playing the dad in the movie looked like he was 45 or 50. And the guy playing his father looked like maybe he was 5 or 6 years older than him. So, just saying, that felt like a little bit of discongruity, whatever the fuck. Yes, it's a movie, I get it, but I mean, if I'm going to buy in, I want to buy in, and that's the advantage of, the heathens in Hollywood have all these people they can cast when we're not on strike. Go union! But in situations like this, when you're making a film off the beaten track, maybe you don't have all these casting choices. So you go with the best actors, whoever did the best auditions, and you take your chances that people like me won't pinpoint these things and pick apart your film, people. What else? I like the movie. I'm sure that these poor people that made, I don't say poor, but the people that made this movie, I'm sure they're sick of hearing these comparisons, but just a month or so ago, I saw The Hill with Dennis Quaid, that I also did a Mike's Instant Movie review on. I like that movie, I like this movie. Yes, there's some similarities, but there's also some differences. That movie was about baseball. This movie's about softball. That movie, men's baseball. This movie, ladies or girls softball. I don't even know what to call people anymore. But basically, this was a softball film. I would have liked some scenes, maybe like they could have shoehorned a scene in this thing about the differences between softball and baseball. I would have enjoyed that. I mean, just as a sports fan. What else? Kind of just away from the actual critique of the film for a minute, whenever you have these situations where and this is real life as well as cinema, whenever you have a family that like one person is like either extremely gifted or they have extreme handicapped, or in some situations a bit of both, the head and the tail on the same coin, so to speak, it's always like that one kid or that one family member kind of gets all the attention, and then everyone else is kind of living in the shadows. And in this movie, and I don't know about the real life situation, but at least in the movie, the two younger sisters are definitely living in the shadows here. I would have liked to have seen them gotten a couple of, have them have a fit. Like, oh, you're always paying attention to her. You were lucky to be born with one arm. Just some fucking shit. Just to get the fingernails dirty a little bit. You know what I mean? Like some sisterly competition. That's how I think. Sorry. I just think this way, that we need to, sully the mud a little bit. Get a little mud. Get a little mud on our uniforms, people. If we're going to talk about sports and baseball, let's get a little dirty. I mean, also, look, we all have our religious beliefs and so forth. I do feel like in this particular, unlike, here's the comparison. Unlike The Hill, which kind of kept its, Christian beliefs kind of in the background a bit. This one was very upfront about it. Not that there's anything wrong with that, Jerry Seinfeld, but just I felt like there was a lot of scenes in here with the character, and I've known people like this. I lived in North Carolina. I live in Florida now. There's a lot of times where characters in this movie are saying things like, well, God has blessed us with baseball. God has blessed us with softball. God has blessed us with meatloaf, and then it's like, oh my God. And the big trick of this movie is not only does she have this one-arm situation to deal with, she also basically blows out her leg, like playing an important high school fucking softball game. She's running to first, she blows out her leg, torn meniscus, ACL, this, that, and the other. So now she's got to overcome the injury. And she was on track to get a college scholarship, and that's all up for grabs now. And so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. But then it's like, well, God has blessed you with this challenge of the torn ACL. And, well, maybe God doesn't want me to play softball. It's like, here's the thing. And this is not just in the movie, although in the movie it gets to be tiresome, to be quite honest. But in reality, and I'm a person who I'll go to church and so forth, but I'm telling you, it gets to be a thing. It's like, well, why make any decisions at all? Like, why wake up in the morning if, well, God must have wanted me to sleep in late. God must have wanted me to belch all day and watch television on the couch. God must have predetermined me to watch YouTube all day. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like at some point, let's have a little bit of free will here. Let's have a little bit of man's fall from grace. I mean, yes, I get it, but I just hate when, Christian people, or even in the movies, or whoever the fuck, or if people don't believe in God, they'll just use the universe. The universe must have wanted me to do this. The universe wanted me to kill all those people. Well, I don't think so. I mean, when do people take personal accountability and responsibility? And sometimes when you just say, well, shit happens, I mean, I've told this story before. I'll tell it again. I went to this theatrical event years ago, 7-8 years ago. The sound system was abhorrent. I believe they had like the speakers facing the stage instead of facing outward. So when all the actors came out on stage and they were wearing these lav mics and so forth, they were getting feedback and it was horrible and everybody was miserable because we couldn't hear a thing. And then the next day, the director of this madness posted on social media, "Oh, folks, thanks for coming out. The devil was against my stage play being heard, but we endured and we heard it." It's like, no, you didn't do a sound check, and you don't know how to put up a sound system to do a fucking play. I mean, you had months in advance. You knew you were doing a stage play. You could have figured out how to put speakers to face out, not in, to get the feedback. But yet the devil snuck into the auditorium in the middle of fucking Swansea, Massachusetts, and started manipulating your sound system. That's not what happened. You didn't do your job. Don't blame the devil. Don't blame God. Don't say it was his plan. You didn't do your fucking job. So I get a little sick. It's a sore spot for me when people blame God, blame the devil, blame this, blame that, blame. Well, you did it. You. So anyway, let's talk about this. Another issue with this movie, we had several scenes where something just happens, then the phone call, you got to come over and find this shit out. Then the person comes over, well, guess what just happened? And then they tell you what just happened in the previous scene. I'll give you an example because you asked. The fucking husband and wife are in the fucking kitchen. Grandma has died. Same thing that happened in The Hill. Grandma, a lot of dead grandmothers in these fucking baseball movies or softball movies. The phone rings. Blah, 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 blah. I'm the coach of Kentucky Christian University. I want your daughter to come and, heal up her leg and come play softball for me. And, oh, coach, that's great. Blah, blah, blah. And then they pick up the phone and they call Grandpa. He's, freshly buried his wife and he's playing softball with his granddaughter and trying to teach her how to run to first base. And then he picks up, what? Oh, we'll be right there. Then they come rushing home. And then Dad and Mom have to go into this exposition of a fucking scene we just saw. So I feel, it's just a gut feeling, that the people who wrote this script was a mission of love. They wrote the script. They weren't like real experienced or professional screenwriters. They wrote this story to honor the reality of the situation and some kind of rookie errors. Like, if you have a scene, you don't have to do a scene next that just tells us what happened in the scene we just saw, because we just saw it. So I don't know. They try to get a little cute, a little fancy. Both at the beginning of the movie, there's like a little flashback thing, like, oh, you know what happened in Austin last week? And then the girl remembers the thing that happened in Austin last week, the previous softball game, of her getting beamed by the ball. And then we have a thing at the end of the movie. I was like, this is weird. Like, she's speaking at like a thing. I think it's like a support group or like a festival or a convention of kids with, differently abled, let's say. And she's like the keynote speaker, Katelyn, and then we miss her whole speech, and then we go in the parking lot, and then the parents are like, oh my God, your speech was so awesome. Oh, thank you so much. And then we have a flashback to the speech. It's like, okay, but it's like, that's cutesy, but did we really accomplish much? Like, was it necessary to kind of do that little trick right there? Probably not. So that's it, folks. Was it a good movie? Yes, I enjoyed it. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. I did. I'm just saying I see these flaws, and I would be remiss not to mention them, because I'm always looking to improve people's games. Consider me the coach of the filmmaking community. If the fine people who made that movie happen to catch my review, you might say, oh, gee whiz, this guy just pulled us apart like we're a chicken wing. But you see, that's what happens. You got Siskel and Ebert, and you got me. I mean, I'll give you a thumb and up. I'll give you a thumb and a half. But I will say that there's some errors, see, baseball, so to speak. I mean, and I held off. I was going to say that this movie is in the same ballpark as The Hill, but I didn't. I didn't say that. Anyway, it's your buddy Mike Messier. Subscribe to One Mike Messier. If you want to see my films, you say, gee whiz, Mike, you have all this bass in your voice about filmmaking. where can we buy your books? A Distance from Avalon, When the Dying and the Dead Reunite. As you might be a sport fan, you can go to Amazon and find Fight or Play Basketball, my wonderful sports youth novel. You can go to One Man and a Camera Films and find my wonderful films that I make, Blood Sugar Sedace, The Impeccable, and so forth. I had that bothering me. You can go to One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan if you want to see my takes on pro wrestling and sports. What else? One Artist, Mike Messier. You can see my wonderful visual art. You can do this, you can do that, you can shake and bake, twist and shout. That's it. That's Mike's Instant Movie Review. I saw the movie I Can, and I enjoyed it.